Welcome to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten. Hi, I'm Wendy. After I graduated with my master's in wellness management, I started my own company, T2 Coaching, Health, Fitness, and Sport. And I'm Kirsten, an athlete, vegan, life coach, and girl mom, running a business focused on helping others create a life they love. We are here to explore all things wellness to help you become the person you've always wanted to be. So if that's why you're here, open your ears and your mind as we tackle the world of wellness together. Hey, everybody. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Kirsten. How are you?
I am actually doing really well. I just crushed my swim. So I have goggle marks under my eyes, but if anybody is watching and you're offended by goggle marks, you are probably not our people anyway.
Well, I just made me open my eyes because when you said goggle marks, I looked at like I was really wrinkly underneath my eyes. And I'll tell you, it's not goggle marks because I don't so much these days. It's just age.
I know that's what I was taking because I always take selfies. If you guys follow me on social media, like every picture on my Instagram is a selfie. Because I'm mostly by myself most of the time. And I like to share my workouts because people have told me that they appreciate it and it motivates them and inspires them. So I keep doing it. But as I've gotten older, like my selfies, I'm so tempted to be like, oh, don't post that. You're just looking older. But kind of like how we are with the podcast, we are just like, you know what, just be you and, whatever. So right. I still post them, but I thought of that this morning when I before my swim, I'm like, oh my gosh, I look like I just swam and it's not even my swim yet.
Well, when I look at primarily like a Facebook memory, because, you update a lot of photos from your past, from when you got Facebook. I think my first Facebook started in 2008 and I look so young. Like I know, but I look young because of the lack of sun exposure, lack of wrinkles, 10 years ago. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever seen like those programs where they show you how you can age. You can plug in yourself and then it shows you aging. Yeah. They're kind of accurate.
I know, right? I know. And it's funny because like 10 years ago, when I looked at myself, I'm like, oh, I look old. But then when I go back and look, I'm like, oh, I looked totally young.
Yeah.
So, you know what? It is, we are who we are in the moment, and that's all we are.
Exactly.
That's actually one of the things I was going to talk about today. But anyway, before we do that, what was your wellness win for the week?
You know what? I kind of wasn't sure exactly. I kind of had a different week where I've been at my mom's. I went away last weekend, volunteer. I had a swim meet, and then I volunteered overnight at a race while my sister was here for one night, and then I kind of came back. So I've kind of been all over the place. And so I guess my wellness win is I adapted pretty well, I think, to just the change of my structure. Right. It was a new structure for the last week. And I think you had a few issues where I was feeling a little anxious, overwhelmed, getting stuff done, going back and forth. But I think I adapted pretty well. And volunteering for the race was so much fun. Believe it or not, it was like 3:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. And then I went to the finish line to see my friend finish. And I ended up having to drive a girl home whose ride left with all her stuff in it. So she was like, got done with her keys. Like she had her car parked there, but the friend left with her keys so she could get in her car, but she couldn't drive home. So I ended up, I was still there, thankfully, and I got to drive her home. And I like helping people. I think it makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's good. Adaptability, in my opinion, is one of the characteristics that if you can go with the flow and adapt to any situation, you're going to be very successful in life.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a big part of my personality, that I am adaptable.
Yeah, I agree that I feel like you're very adaptable.
That was a big thing that I recognized.
Yeah. I had a couple like kind of floating through my mind because as they happen, I'm like, ooh, this is huge. This is huge. But my biggest one was last night when I got off work, which I get off work pretty late anyway. And I just want to come home and just start settling down. And it still takes me a couple hours. But as I was leaving, the other coach I work with at the pool, he was coming in to check on a few things. And we ended up talking. It was our test week, so we test the kids to see if they go to the next level. So we were kind of talking about how the tests went with which kids, what kids were going to move up. But then we started talking about the whole program and next year. And anyway, an hour went by, and it was almost 10 o'clock. And I was like, I have got to go home. And normally, so I was kind of frustrated that it was so late. I missed out on getting a parking place near my apartment. So I had to park like 3 apartment buildings away. I got in. I was so tired. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to clock in for this hour. And there's no like, it wasn't an official meeting or anything. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm like supposed to clock in or what, but that's kind of hard. I sometimes like am too nice, and it's to my detriment. And I was like, it was a great conversation, but it was so late. It was an inconvenience for me, and it was all work related. There was nothing personal involved. So I'm like, I'm going to clock in for an hour. And in the past, I think I would have been like, oh, it was my fault for talking too long, and right. I shouldn't be talking too long. And the woman who does like the time at the end of the pay period, she goes through and checks everyone's time. That's who I swam with this morning. And I told her, I was like, Alex and I had this long conversation last night. It took, I was there for over an hour. I didn't go home till 10 o'clock. And I was like, and so I clocked in for the hour, and she was like, good. And I was like, yes. So I was just proud of myself. Like for me, that's a huge personal win to make myself and my time worthwhile.
Yeah. Excellent.
So another thing I thought of, but it's not really a wellness win for me, but I was really excited about. My mom told me she listened to our first 2 podcasts.
Yay.
I know. She was like, I finally got around to listening to your guys' podcasts. Good. So I listened to the first 2 episodes. I was like, yay.
That's fun.
I know. So that was really fun. All right. So you guys, Wendy and I kind of talked about a lot of, we go over like, what do people want to know about? What do we want to share? We try to spread it around so it's not all the same topic. And we both had a couple like smaller things that wouldn't necessarily fill a whole episode. They could, but they're very specific. So I don't know if somebody wants that much detail about a certain topic. So we decided to do more of like a kind of like a ask me anything, or what are some common threads throughout Wendy and I have both been coaching for over 20 years, each of us. And so we see common questions, common things that come up that our experience of being coaches for so long, we could maybe help some of you guys who are newer to some of these topics, or if you're just kind of like, you need to hear about some of the things that you didn't even know you thought you needed to hear about. But there are really common things that Wendy and I go through. So before we jump into a couple, we're just going to each just talk about a couple that we get a lot. But before we go into it, we haven't really talked about our coaching journey. Each of us, we allude to it in all of our episodes. And by the way, this is episode number 16. What?
Oh, okay.
Aren't we amazing?
I was thinking it was 15, so I'm glad you said that.
I know. I'm so excited. So anyway, and so we allude to like how we got into coaching and why we're coaches, but never really our coaching journey. So I thought, since we are talking about like all our experience as coaches, maybe go into, Wendy, a few minutes of, why you became a coach and your kind of journey as a coach. So maybe some of the highlights, maybe some of the lowlights.
Yeah. So for me, why I became a coach is it just kind of fell into my lap. And in the end, ultimately, I want to help athletes not go through what I went through. And I have all the answers. I've experienced everything. I've been doing this. I'm into my 33rd season of triathlon. And back in the day, we've already talked about this, there was not really many books, really any coaching, no internet, no social media, no Googling the answer, no chat GPT to tell you the answer. So I learned by illness and injury. And having a coach as an age group swimmer my whole life, my coaches were huge influences on my life. So when I started coaching, um, I did what my friend Tony Dragon did to me. So when I started, I got my master's degree, I started working full time at a health club. And the guy named Tony was a professional triathlete, and he started helping me with my training plans. We'd meet every month. I also swam. He was my master swim coach. And we'd sit down with a piece of paper, and we'd make a calendar on this piece of paper, and he would just outline time, swim, bike, run for a certain time, no intensity involved, none of that really existed. And so that's kind of how I learned about triathlon coaching. And we started a triathlon club together, Northern Colorado Triathlon Club. And then a couple years after I started working at this health club, I became a personal trainer. And just as part of personal training, clients were asking me to write their training plans because they got into the sport of triathlon. They knew me, they wanted to do triathlon. There was a local Fort Collins sprint there. So I did the same thing that Tony did for me. After our personal training session in the weight room, I would come up with a piece of paper and kind of we talk about their schedule, their time available to train, what days are best to swim, what days are best to run, what's their goals, where are they at fitness wise. So I kind of started coaching that way. I really didn't know it was coaching, but it really was. And then I got involved. I learned about Training Peaks, which is the platform that I still use. And it just became part of like, I started teaching adults better swim technique, how to swim because they were a triathlete. So as part of me doing swim lessons, I started writing their training plans kind of on this, like, not for money, just, you're paying me money to teach you how to swim. Here's a training plan on top of that. And so it just kind of happened. And then I remember in 2003, we got our coaching certification with USA Triathlon. I started a business. I actually called it Achieve Balance, was my original name of my first business. It wasn't an LLC yet. And then fast forward to 2008, I changed my name to T2 Coaching, and I got an LLC because coaching became part of my, 20, 30 hours a week part-time job, as well as, teaching City of Fort Collins wellness programs, coaching, teaching adults, doing open water swim clinics, transition clinics. I was a race director. So it just all fell into place. It's not like something that I want to be a coach. It just kind of fell into my lap. But part of it is my upbringing. I had an age group coach my whole life, and I just got connected to the right people.
Right. And my journey is actually very, very similar. And Wendy and I met, pretty early on. But I was actually a personal trainer first. I worked at a gym full time, and I was looking through the newspaper. Remember the newspapers? I was looking through the newspaper of an event, something fun that might help motivate my clients. So I didn't know what triathlon was. I'd never even heard of it. This was 1998.
Uh-huh.
And I was just looking through the newspaper, and I saw this sprint triathlon, and it was a 500-yard pool swim. I worked at a YMCA. I was personal trainer at the YMCA, and I was their club, the YMCA swim coach. So the head coach, 230, I think, kids on the team. So I ran a swim team, and then I was a personal trainer. And then they were like, "Oh, you're a swim coach and a personal trainer. Can you start teaching water aerobics?" I was like, "Probably, sure." So I went to a couple certifications, started teaching water aerobics. And then that led to me teaching more fitness classes because they're like, "Oh, you're a fitness instructor and a personal trainer and a swim coach. You do water aerobics. Here, can you teach kickboxing? Can you teach step? Can you teach all these things?" So I just did everything at the YMCA. But I looked, and it was a local sprint triathlon at a different YMCA than the one I worked at. It was a 500-yard swim, a 10-mile bike, and a 2-mile run. So kind of like what a super sprint would be now. And I didn't know what that was, but I'm like, this seems like something that I can help my clients, my personal training clients, who are mostly like young moms, like 20s, 30s. They just had a kid. And I was way younger. I was just out of college. And I was like, I could get them through this. I teach people how to swim. I know the basics of personal training, and it's all like building, loading, resting, getting better, So I kind of just used like you did, and mine wasn't even by my own experience because I hadn't done anything like that yet. This was my first one, but from what I knew from my degree and from coaching swimming, and I grew up as a swimmer too, I kind of threw together a plan very similar to what you said you and Tony did, in that I was like, okay, let's get in this amount of time. Basically, let's make sure we can swim a 500. Let's
Right.
make sure we could bike 10 miles, and let's make sure we can run 2 miles. And we did it all together, and we all did the race. And it was so fun. I was hooked from then. And so as soon as I moved, I was living in New York. As soon as I moved to Colorado, I started working at a gym, and I did the Fort Collins Club Triathlon
Hmm.
because that was like the only one in Fort Collins at the time. I lived in Fort Collins. And so that was my second triathlon. And it was, again, really fun. It was still a pool swim. I'd never swam in open water, but it was so fun. And then I did what Wendy did. I just started helping other people do this. And then after I did my first Ironman and knew I was pretty much going to be doing this for a while, and I was a personal trainer at a gym, I actually met Wendy. We actually formed a kids team. Remember our kids
Yes.
team? So we had a youth triathlon team. That was really fun. And so Wendy and I went and got our USAT certification, level 1 and level 2. And so I actually learned kind of the right way to coach. But like Wendy, I've just developed my own style of coaching from there. And just ever since, and I've taken breaks. I didn't go as like full time or, into it as Wendy did. I did like 20 other businesses, and kind of like was just kind of feeling around like where I fit in and where I wanted to be. And after I had my daughter, I was more like, I want to make sure that I'm doing something I love. And I want to make sure I'm doing something that fills me up and brings me joy. And so I wrote down all the things I did in my life, and coaching is always what it is. So
Hmm.
so now that's what I do primarily. I work at a few gyms, I teach some classes. But a lot of times my intention of teaching all these classes is to meet more people who I might be able to coach. And
Right.
I've turned my triathlon coaching into, I probably have equal amount of like life coaching clients as triathlon clients. So I have clients that don't do triathlon and they want to get a better job. They want to improve themselves in other areas. So
Mhm.
I work a lot with, I'm about half and half with triathlon and then more like life coaching. I know that's like sometimes like life coach. What the heck is that? That's what it is. You're coaching somebody through their entire life.
Hmm.
So I have about equal um, clients in both. So yeah,
Yeah.
now it's just like Wendy. It's part of our lives, and that's actually one of the reasons we started this podcast is because we do have so much experience in all these different areas, and we want to share that with you guys.
Right. And people ask me, I've been doing triathlon, haven't missed a race in 33 years. So multi-sport training, what's my why? My why is for mental and physical well-being. That's
Yeah.
why I continue to do the sport. Less of the competition, although I've been a competitive athlete my whole life. That's always going to be part of it. I'm more competitive with myself than other people,
Yeah.
but definitely the multi-sport lifestyle is definitely good for mental and physical well-being.
Oh, 100%. I would be like, I've gone through a divorce, a child, a split up from my daughter's dad, like a lot of life changes, moving a lot. And I wouldn't have gotten through any of it without having multi-sport in my life.
Right.
So it's helped a lot. So let's just go ahead and maybe go back and forth, and we can add on to each other's um, stuff. What let's just start. Go ahead. What's something that you get a lot, um, that you've heard a lot, that you've helped a lot of people with over the last 20 years?
Um, I think it's pretty normal. What if I m- miss a day, or what if I really, it's just, oh my God, panic mode to miss a training session, and or panic mode when they aren't able to execute as the intended workout details want them to execute. So number one, if you miss a day or more, and how to adapt and adjust really just depends on why you missed the training session. Did you miss it because you got sick, you're injured, you worked late, you didn't eat, you didn't drink? There's a lot of reasons that are going to impact why you missed one or more days, up to a week, a month, whatever the reason. And so we want to know that as your coach so we can adapt the plan accordingly. If you're missing because you're sick or injured, you probably need more time off. We're not going to tell you jump back into the training plan where you left off. If you miss because you just happened to work late and the day got away and you just didn't have that opportunity, well, then no big deal. Just continue with what we have assigned and continue with the progression of you missed a day, maybe flip flop. If you normally have a day off, well, you just had your day off. So maybe do the intended workout on the day that you were going to have normally off. So it's just a little adjustment that athletes, if they've never done that, had to do that before, again, it creates a little bit of a panic mode.
Yeah. Yeah. Way panic mode. I've had athletes, and we've Wendy and I both told stories on over several podcasts of like our own experiences with this. So we don't need to rehash old stories, but it definitely, one thing I would add, if I have athletes that are missing workouts because something came up, just so you guys know, something will always come up. And it's been, 2-3 weeks and they haven't gotten in all their workouts, then I'm like, okay, we need to reevaluate the time that you told me that you realistically had available to train.
Right.
Because
I agree. I agree. And missing a workout. So we talked about like excuses versus valid reasons. To me, this day and age, if you miss a workout just because you don't feel like doing it, that's fine. You don't feel like doing it. You shouldn't do something that you don't feel like doing. You shouldn't do something. You should stop a workout early if you're in pain, if you're having a knee pain or a hip pain and you're on the bike, or the saddle's bothering you, or you're just mentally not into the workout. Modify your workout, slow down, or just stop. It's not a big deal. In the big picture, stopping one workout or more, even a couple workouts, is not going to change the outcome of your upcoming event, because there's so many factors that are going to impact that outcome besides training in general. But I tell athletes now, if your reason is you don't feel like doing the workout, is that an excuse? It's no, you don't feel like doing the workout, don't do it.
Right. And I've actually practiced and exercised that several times this week, actually several times over the last 4 weeks since I officially started training for my first race. But I was talking to somebody 2 days ago about this, and I said, this is why I've been in the sport for 27 years. This is for longevity of the sport, is that like this morning, I had a 50-minute run on my training plan. And I woke up, I lifted heavy legs yesterday. I did the step mill. I did some intervals on the step mill. My hips are tight. My glutes are tight. I was just tired. And it's my first workout of the morning. And I did not want to run. And it's freezing outside. So it would have been indoors, which I don't mind indoors, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to run. And nothing hurt. I just was like, everything was like fatigued and tired. So I went on the treadmill and I walked for 50 minutes. I got 50 minutes on my legs. I walked for 50 minutes. And maybe 20 years ago, I would have freaked out. I would have been like, oh my God, I didn't run. I'm going to do horrible on this race, blah, 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 blah. I walked 50 minutes. I felt great. And then what I did, I went to the pool and I crushed my swim workout. So, you don't, maybe maybe walking instead of running for me helped me have a really great swim workout, which filled me with joy. And I came out of the pool all like on fire, hopped up, ready to crush the world. Whereas if I would have run and struggled through it and had a miserable time, barely making any sort of pace, and then I was like, oh, now I have to go swim. And so then I would half-ass my swim, and then I finished feeling defeated.
Right.
So,
and I've learned and I don't think I probably have, but my personality, I will never feel defeated
Mm-hmm.
from not executing a race or a workout, mostly a workout that I've planned. I don't feel defeated because I have the experience to know all the factors that impacted, that went into that workout that I couldn't execute as intended.
Right.
And if that means I can't hit the intensity level, I can't hit the distance or the duration, and I stop early, I've never felt defeated for that reason. I've never felt like, oh my God, like my race goals are over. And I've coached athletes who feel defeated when they can't hit that intensity level that I suggest, or they stop a workout early. And to me, it's like, well, look at all the, your crotch hurt, your knees hurt, you ran out of time, you weren't hitting the details. So if that means slowing down just to get the duration in, that's fine. But if you're in pain, of course you should stop the workout. I will never tell you otherwise. It's not an excuse. It's a valid reason not to follow through with the details. You learn from it, you move on. You may have to modify what's coming because maybe you're getting sick or injured, modify, communicate with your coach so we can help modify it in the future.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So in general, and this actually leads into my first one. And Wendy and I mentioned this over the past few months. Listen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And listen to your brain, listen to your mind. Like my body could have run this morning, but I just didn't want to muster the energy to do it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And when I teach my classes, we don't do very many breaks because I tell people, I encourage my participants in my classes to listen to their body and take their breaks when needed because everyone's body is so different. And so I used to always say, if you need to take a break, take it. But now I say, if you need or want to take a break, you don't have to need a break. If your brain just isn't wanting to keep going and you're like, I just want to stop for a second, stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
No biggie.
No biggie.
So my first one kind of plays along with that, but kind of in a more like emotional way. And the reason I thought of this is last Friday, my first three people that I worked with on Friday. One was adult swim, and she's not an athlete. She just wanted to learn to swim. So one was her, one was one of my athletes, and then one was just somebody that I work with. It wasn't somebody I coach. And all three of them said something very similar. And this was all before like noon on Friday. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a reoccurring thing. So each person alluded to the fact that they didn't feel good today because they didn't feel good in their body. So one of them, she's gained 40 pounds since last year. She figured out it was a medical thing, but she's like, I just can't get used to this body. And so my swimming, I can't get comfortable swimming because I'm 40 pounds heavier. Mm-hmm. And then the other person was like, I've gained some weight and I just don't feel good in my body. So I can't run because my body's not moving the way I want it to move. And then the third person, she hadn't gained or lost any weight, but she was like, I just don't feel like my body's not doing what I want it to do. So after three people like said something, it got me thinking, our bodies are where they are in the moment. It doesn't matter if 20 years ago you were 100 pounds heavier or 100 pounds lighter. Just like it doesn't matter what it's going to feel like tomorrow or the next day. So wherever your body is today, that's what you're going to use. That's the body you're taking into your exercise or your workout or your life. So you're not focusing on what did my body do in the past and why isn't it doing that now? Or what can my body do in the future? And why does it feel this way now? Our bodies are where they are in this moment, and that's it. So,
and that just reminded me of, let's say you did an hour. I'm going to keep it simple. An hour bike at 130 to 140 heart rate a week ago, and you wanted to do the same hour at the same heart rate, 140 beats. a week later. You're in a completely different mental and physical state 1 week later. You have one more full week of life that has happened to you and training that has happened to you. It's a completely, even though the details are the same, it's a completely different workout. And so you might not have the same impact feeling that you had a week ago doing the exact same details a week later.
Right.
That's part of your body is still adapting, you're getting used to it, and that's okay. You shouldn't expect to have the same outcome, whether it's good or bad. You could have had a horrible outcome last week and have a positive outcome this week, or a positive outcome last week, a horrible outcome this week with the same workout, because you are just in a different place. You're not the
Right.
same.
And not even the same physically. Like Wendy said, a whole week of life happened. So, you might be in a different place mentally. You might have more stress. You might have less stress. You might have more sleep, less sleep. There's so many things. And
Right.
that's why Wendy and I really talk about, we like to encompass wellness. And I wanted to mention this at the beginning in case any non-athletes are listening. I didn't want them to turn this off, because this isn't just about being an athlete. Even though Wendy and I are athletes and we coach athletes, you can pertain this to every area in your life. And even if nothing changed in your whole life, but you're just having, I call it a low self-esteem day, is when I just feel like maybe nothing's changed in my life, but I'll just feel like blah, or I'll like look at myself and I'm like, oh, why am I so ugly today? Or like nothing is like fitting, and even though I'm the same exact weight, it's just a mental thing. So I called it a low self-esteem day. You might be having a low self-esteem day today. And so things aren't going to go as well as when you're feeling on top of the world. And so I think I just wanted to mention this to remind you guys that it doesn't matter what you did in the past, and it doesn't matter what you're going to do in the future. All you have is today. And if we're talking about a physical body, your physical body is what you have today. So work within that. If your ankles are hurting, put a buoy in and go swim. If you're if you're a multi-sport athlete, you're in luck, because there's rarely an injury that you can do nothing. So what is your body doing today? How can you nourish and honor your body how it is today? What can you do within your workout to work toward your goals with this mind, body, and soul that you have in this very moment?
Right. I like that.
Yeah. And so it kind of piggybacked in on the excuses thing and the listen to your body thing. And what I did this morning, my 50-minute walk. And yesterday I was supposed to, like, we have to do this. As written, my plan was hill repeats. I went outside for 4 minutes and it was so windy, and it was actually really warm, but it was so windy. And I was like, I'm going to go do the step mill instead. And I did some intervals on the step mill. It was so much fun. I literally rearranged my whole workout because I don't like wind. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That's okay.
Right. So something that has gone through my mind a couple of times, and I tell this to my youth swimmers when they're complaining all the time, some more than others. Right. I'm like, I'll never make you do anything you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And training's optional. Mm-hmm. It's a hobby. It's optional, even for professional triathletes. I mean, it's a little different. They're going to get paid.
They're choosing it as a profession.
It's still optional for them as well. So really just, get down or get into your mind of your why, which leads to, I'm going to piggyback on the why, is I get this a lot, is how do you stay motivated?
Oh my gosh, that's my second one, Wendy.
How do you stay motivated? And this question that I got from a lady at the aid station that I recently volunteered for, she wanted to volunteer because she thinks she might want to do this race. What's called the Georgia Death Race. She's new to running, but she wants to do endurance. So she just wanted to experience a trail event, maybe something she wants to do. So she was asking me, why do you do these long events? Why not the shorter events? So I explained my history and how it's involved. And how do you stay motivated and stuff? It's all about the why. Why do I do long races now? Because I'm older. I'm at the age where I'm not necessarily going to get faster. That's just part of aging. So I don't do the shorter event. I still do the shorter events, but I also know I may not get to be where I was a couple of years ago at that speed, but I still want to work towards it. I do the long events because it's challenging. And my why is I love challenges. And so in anything in my life, work, relationships, my sport, if there's a challenge, then that's an instant motivator for me is to tackle this challenge.
I like how this lady is wanting to dip her toes into trail running, so she's thinking about signing up for the Georgia death race. You're like, you're my people. So I actually, that was my second one. So I came up with two like overall arching themes, and that was my one because people always ask me, and not even in sport, just in life, they say, how do you stay motivated? You're so disciplined. I wish I was as disciplined as you. I wish I could motivate myself how you do. Like,
and to me, that's an excuse because you can.
Right. Well,
Don't
yeah.
wish it, just do it.
Just do it. And I agree, but what I think that people don't understand is like Wendy just said, like Wendy and I are no more disciplined than any of you guys, any single one of you. And every single one of you guys is disciplined, I guarantee, in some area of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to you. So that's why we talk about finding your why all the time. Because if you have a strong why, the motivation and the discipline just happen. So for example, finances. I would never say in a million years I'm disciplined in finances. Because the only time I buckle down is when I can't pay my rent. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden my why, like if I'm cruising along, I could pay my rent, I could pay for food, I could pay all my bills, I can sign up for a couple races, I could take my daughter and I go out to eat, like, and things are running smoothly. If I feel like taking a day off or like want to go do something or spend extra money, like I'll do it. But the minute I look at my bank account and I'm like, crap, I have 3 days to the end of the month and I'm $300 short on my bills, I'm going to buckle down and be the most disciplined person on the planet. And I'm going to go sell 20 things on Facebook Marketplace. And I'm going to stop buying anything until I make that money.
Right.
So then if somebody saw me in those 3 days, they're like, damn, you're so disciplined in your finances. But if they saw me 3 days before, when my daughter and I spent $50 at Whole Foods for one meal, then they're going to be like, yeah, you're like loosey-goosey with your money.
Right. So, right. Context is everything.
Yeah. And so I've worked with people as a personal trainer who, like, I'm just going to say like middle-aged man, overweight, ate a bunch of crap, had a heart attack. Before the heart attack, there wasn't motivation, right? He's like, I eat what I want. I don't really work out. I play golf with my buddies on the weekend. Then he has a heart attack. He has a family to support. All of a sudden, he is disciplined and he is motivated, starts working out, hires me as a personal trainer, starts eating a bunch of salads. He's disciplined, and I said that in quotes, because he has to be.
Right.
And so I think that's just kind of, you know, make that switch in your mind if you think I'm not disciplined. So people, I'm vegan. My daughter and I are vegan. And I talked to somebody who is moving toward a vegan lifestyle. And she's like, oh, I really want to be vegan, but I love cheese, we could do a whole episode on cheese. That was my excuse too. When I was vegetarian for like 20 years.
That's an excuse.
Yes.
That's a good example of an excuse.
Yes. I used that excuse for like 10 years. Like I was vegetarian. I really wanted to be vegan, but I couldn't give up cheese. So she goes, I wish I was as disciplined as you. Being vegan to me is no discipline because the reason I'm vegan is for animals. So it's not even like an issue because I'm not doing it for my health. So I don't need to be convinced that cheese is bad for my health. as soon as I learned how horrible the dairy industry is for the animals, I gave up cheese in a total instant.
Right.
Because the what people would call discipline or motivation, it changed because it wasn't even an option then. Because I'm vegan for the animals and eating dairy hurts the animals. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not even a thing anymore. So that, I mean, I this is one thing that I've gotten my whole life, especially if I'm getting close to a race. If I'm getting really close to a race, I fine tune my training and my eating because I have more motivation and
Mm-hmm.
because my why is bigger. I'm closer to my race. I know people that can't lose a pound for if their life depends on it, but then they get married. They're like, I'm getting married in 6 weeks and I want to fit into my wedding dress and look hot for the pictures. Guess what? They drop weight like that
Right.
because all of a sudden
Yeah.
their why is humongous.
It's always about the why.
Yeah. And one other example I wanted to give on this, just because I think this is a huge thing, and this is my last thing, so then we can move on. If in all areas of life, so in your relationship, if your partner comes to you and says, you know what, you're not giving me enough time and attention, I want a divorce, all of a sudden you're going to be very motivated to give them lots of time and attention if you don't want that divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in all areas of of your life, we already just talked about finances, relationships, eating, training. In every area of your life, if you want to be more motivated or disciplined, you have to have a good reason why you want to be motivated and disciplined. And then it's super easy, super easy.
Right.
So those are my two. Did you have any other ones you wanted to add, or do you want to?
No, I did want to talk about a question that I had in the T2 Endurance Facebook group, because I let my group know what we were talking about today. And so I just wanted to read her question.
Yeah.
Um, Her question was tips, how to best relearn to trust your body at times of transition. Example, perimenopause, when you feel the body and mind as you used to know it shifts and you might struggle to trust your body.
We kind of
So,
talked about this with the being in your body, how it is in the
yeah.
moment.
So the main thing with my experience of perimenopause and menopause is when I was going through perimenopause, it wasn't highlighted like it's right now in all social media. Oprah Winfrey just did a thing on menopause. You know, Stacey Sims, the author of Roar and Next Level, two books I've read all about women and training and perimenopause and menopause. It's just booming is the idea of what women go through. It never used to be. So when I was going through it, I didn't know I was. My big issue was I was menstruating twice a month for like a year. And
Sounds
is that normal?
awful.
It's not normal, but my cycle has always been off my whole life. That's just part of being to my
Mm-hmm.
mind, part of being an athlete. The hormones, the highs and the lows is going to mess with your hormones. So I just thought it was the volume of training I was doing. I was struggling with running. And the reason I went and got checked out was during Ironman Boulder 2015 at mile 100, I couldn't breathe. I was about to quit. I was about to stop the race at mile 100 of the bike because I couldn't breathe. And I've done 21 Ironmans. You know, this was probably number 19 at that time or something like that. I don't know. So my reason why was to get this issue checked out is I couldn't breathe. I almost quit an Ironman. I finished the bike and I said, if I can walk the marathon, I'm going to finish. I started running mile 9. I couldn't breathe again. And I ended up finishing. I ended up walking. And then I made an appointment with my doctor. It took me way too long to make that appointment.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have known have more educated about the perimenopause issues, I would have gone in sooner. And then she told me that, you're transitioning. So how do you deal with it? And then I'm 5 years postmenopausal, and again, I didn't go through a lot of weight gain and hot flashes and other things that people go through with menopause. So everyone's different. So I really wanted to just enforce that don't expect certain things
Mhm.
that you hear other women go through, because it might not happen to you. I feel like it didn't really happen to me, other than I have really bad osteoporosis. I had a really bad bone loss during that time. Um, and again, like we've already talked about, listening to your body, taking a step back, pausing, and educating yourself. Seek help from a professional who like Dr. Stacy Sims or someone locally that knows a lot about the perimenopause, menopausal transition phases that women are going to go through. And again, listening to your body and understanding, is this a normal thing that is happening because of what you're doing with training, or is this abnormal? Having your period twice a month is not a normal thing.
Right.
But no one told me. Like,
Right.
I just let it happen. So I think that was it, answering her question.
Yeah, and I think I want to reiterate that everybody is so different that we could interview 100 women
Mm-hmm.
they could list their perimenopause, their menopause, postmenopause, everything that's going on, and it's going to all look different. So, um, mine looked a lot different too. I thought I was going through menopause before I had my daughter. Obviously, I didn't because I got pregnant. But I was like having hot flashes. I hadn't had my period in 6 months. But again, I was also training for an Ironman. I was training for Hawaii, so I was training really hard. I had
Right.
lost a ton of weight, and I mean, there were even people that were like, asking my friend Ashley, like, is Kirsten okay? She looks like she's lost a lot of weight, and then all of a sudden, poof, I got pregnant, and I was like, guess I wasn't going through menopause, but I did shortly after. But so I had more symptoms from training as an athlete than I did actual perimenopause. And then I don't know what happened during menopause because I was raising a infant and a toddler. So I was an emotional train wreck. It could have been my hormones changing for menopause. It could have been being a new mom and having no idea what I was doing. Who knows? So
Right. And I think you need to trust your body. She asked about trusting your body
yeah,
and mind. I think you have to, because you're the only person that knows what you're going through.
yeah,
And you just accept change. You accept certain things are inevitable. Accept change, as far as, like, I know a lot of women are going to go through these hormone weight gain fluctuations. Accept that, but educate yourself to try to prevent certain things that you don't want to happen to you. There's ways to lessen the
right.
weight gain, stuff like that. And again, I always refer to Dr. Stacy Sims because she's the expert. I'm not.
Right. And I think one thing that you and I have in common, and maybe why we didn't feel as many symptoms as maybe the average woman, is because you and I um, make our health a priority and we
Right.
make our wellness a priority. So, rest, listening to our bodies, taking supplements, eating fruits and vegetables and whole grains, exercising daily, whether that's training or just moving our bodies. And I know, like, when I went through my pregnancy, I had such an easy pregnancy, and the doctors were all worried because I was an older pregnant lady. So they considered it a geriatric pregnancy. And every time I took these tests, they're like, "You're textbook perfect. Why are you having this easy pregnancy as a 45-year-old woman?" And it's because I take care of myself and I'm healthy and I value sleep, rest, do as much as I can to reduce my stress and anxieties. And I
Lower
think
your
that is really helpful.
Right, lower your inflammation levels by eating certain foods.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think it's a big deal.
Yeah. So I think in general, like Wendy and I, we make an effort, and it is an effort every day. We think about what we're going to eat, what we're going to do, how we're going to respond to external things going on to help create an overall wellness that I think will make these transitions a little bit easier.
Mhm.
So I agree. So I wanted to finish with kind of like a couple things like what we wish everybody knew. Like based on we've both touched thousands and thousands of people's lives over the years. And we do it, Wendy and I, and she even said it, to be of service and to help other people. That's why we're in this business. That's why we're doing this podcast. So what are something, and I wrote down two, you could do however many you want. Mm-hmm. What is something that you wish everybody knew?
About like wellness? You go
Anything.
first. You go first.
Okay. So the first one I thought about is, and again, these like envelop all areas of your life, is you can't do it alone. And this, especially for our athletes that Wendy and I train to do an Ironman or an ultra. I'm training a girl right now who's doing a 200-mile race. Mm-hmm. It's a 200-mile ultra. 200 miles, you guys. Just let that sink in. I'm not doing a 200-mile race. Wendy probably will be at one point. But think of all the people in her life, in her career, in her job, in her house. She's married. She takes care of animals at her house. All the people that she needs to have around her in order to train and complete a 200-mile race. And if we go into anything in life thinking that we can do it by ourselves, we are either going to, we're just mistaking. We're going to either do too much and burn out because we're trying to do it all, mm-hmm. or we're going to fail. Because in every area of your life, we need other people to help us through. So that's my first one. Do you want me to do my second one? Mm-hmm. And then you can go. So my other one is take it little teeny tiny baby steps at a time. My whole entire life, everything I have, everything I've worked for, everything I've accomplished has been little teeny tiny steps that seemed maybe even insignificant at the time, that compounded and added up over time, created a huge result. So I don't want you to underestimate any little teeny tiny step you take toward your goal, and just trust, like Wendy said before, trust that you're doing the right thing to get to where you want in your life. And there's nothing I've done that just happened. I've never taken a big leap. Everything I had has been little tiny steps. If you want to learn to run, you have to take your first step. If you want to learn to swim, you have to get in the water. My first time swimming in open water, I signed up for an Ironman in August. And in June, I had still never been in open water in my whole life. I grew up in Colorado. Yeah, there's some lakes, but my family, we're not boat people. I'd been a pool swimmer my whole life. I bought a wetsuit. Well, my first one I bought was a scuba suit because nobody told me. Don't wear a scuba suit for triathlon. It's the wrong wetsuit. Nobody told me. I bought one. And I'm like, this feels really like baggy and bulky. And then anyway, that's a whole nother story. So I ended up ordering a triathlon wetsuit. I put it on. I had my big Aqua Seal mask because that was like what I swam in for my first 10 years. My husband at the time, he was in a kayak. We were in a pond in Fort Collins, like the size of my house, like this small little pond. And he was going to practice rolling in his kayak while I just swam back and forth to get used to the water. I put on my goggles, had my wetsuit on. I went underwater. I couldn't see. And I'd never experienced that before because I'm a pool swimmer. And the water was green and cloudy and I couldn't see and I couldn't breathe. And I stood up and I took off my goggles and I said, okay, I'm good for today. And I left. That was my first open water experience 2 months before my first Ironman. But I got in the water, put on my wetsuit, put on my goggles, put my face in, and then I learned I'm not going to be able to see in the water when I swim. The next time I got in to swim, I already knew that was going to happen. So I swam a little. And then the next time and next time. So you have to start somewhere and just trust that all these little things you're going to do are going to add up to something big. And now I've done 20 Ironmans, 3 times in Hawaii, and I'll go open water swim anywhere, anytime.
Right. All right. So mine are learn from the past, live in the present for your future why. I think learning from the past, failures and successes, but let it go. Don't dwell on it because you're living in the present because that's where you're at right now. I've always been a present. I've always lived in the present. I know some people who just are always into the future of buying stuff, races, and sometimes when you live in the future based on my experience knowing others is they think that stuff has already been done because they're living in the future, so what they think hasn't happened yet, but they think it has, and so they forget they're supposed to do it. And so learning from your failures and successes, live in the present, and always have a future why, I think is really important, not just in sport, but for all aspects of wellness that we've already talked about on all our episodes. And then finding or enjoying the process, finding joy. There's more often than not something positive about every negative situation. And so when you take the time, when you're into this, whatever negative situation you're in, if you just take the time and process what's going on, why it happened, living in the present, what is the positive outcome? And sometimes you don't know the positive outcome until you live in your future self. Then you can look back on it. Again, looking back on the past learning from it, you can see that positive outcome that came out of it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love one thing that I do when I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling like hopeless. Like that's a good word for it. Like if I feel like, oh my God, like everything is getting to me and I just can't. The one of the only things that pulls me out of that is to look into something I'm excited about for the future. Not that I'm going to be living in that future, but like you said, always having a goal or something in the future that you're excited about really helps pull me out of a bad space.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
a good
I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
So we are going to wrap up, but I want to know what you're excited about for this upcoming week, Wendy.
Not traveling, getting back into kind of like my normal routine. I've had the past week off of coaching the kids, so kind of just getting back into that routine of coaching the kids. It's always fun to come back from their seasonal week off because we get to do some more kind of fun cross training. We'll do some stuff outside with the kids. And then, just again, not traveling. I like to travel, but I'm not someone that wants to be gone every weekend.
Yeah. That's funny because mine, I actually have one this week, is I am traveling.
Where are you
And
going?
I haven't traveled for a while. I am going this weekend to St. George to
Or your
have some
camp?
me time. I'm nobody's going. I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
Yeah, I
Nice.
was going to do a camp and nobody signed up. So, it actually was going to be in 2 weekends, but then a schedule. Anyway, I just decided Cora's with her dad this weekend. That's the only weekend I have free. Once summer hits, I can't do anything because I run a summer swim team.
Swim meets. I just looked at my swim meet schedule.
Yeah.
Every weekend in May except Mother's Day weekend. Every weekend in June except Father's Day weekend. Every weekend in July.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So once summer hits, May, June, July, every day, Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to noon is solid booked for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to do any sort of anything, I have to do it in April or the beginning of May. So I already have a trip planned in May. So I'm going to drive by myself. Thank God. I'm just going to spend some alone time and, of course, do some training while I'm in St. George. The temperatures are going to be in the 70s. And today here it's like freezing and windy. And I'm excited just to be alone for 4 days.
That sounds great.
I know. I'm excited. All right, you guys. If you have anything you want to add to anything that we talked about today, we are always, always, always loving your comments, your suggestions. Tell us what you want to hear about. And let us know what you want more of. And if you like it, if you like us, send us a good review, rate us, give us some stars, give us some love.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, Wendy, I will see you next week. And thank you guys for being here.
And make it a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten.
If you want to learn more about us or anything we talked about today, check out the links in our show notes.
We would love to know what you think of our podcast and what you want more of. So drop us a comment, send us a message, and help us out by leaving us a rating and a review.
And don't forget to let us know your wellness win for this week.
Thanks for listening.
Make it a great day.